Amy Dixon is a visually impaired professional triathlete and member of the USA Para-Triathlon national team. She participated in the 2022 Tokyo Paralympics. Also, Amy serves as president of the Glaucoma Eyes International nonprofit. She is dedicated to being a patient advocate and improving the lives of those living with low or no vision. She embodies her mantra, "You don't need sight to have vision," and is a true icon. Please join me in welcoming Amy Dixon.
I am Amy Dixon, a two-time Paralympian, world champion, four-time national champion. My diagnosis started one day at the age of 22. I was in pharmacy school studying to be a PharmD at the University of Connecticut. I was pouring a glass of wine in the restaurant where I was a sommelier and missed. I was immediately admonished by my boss, who said I was lazy, thought perhaps I was drunk as a young college student, and I blubbered that I hadn't seen the glass, and the glass I swore was right in front of me. This continued to happen. I continued bumping into the busboys as they came out of the kitchen, the chefs, the bartenders, and I became known as Crash. A nickname I'm very proud of to this day. So after several weeks of this, I had a hard time driving at night, and I got run off the road at midnight while driving home from the restaurant due to the glare of an oncoming car. At that time, I had no health insurance, and I decided to go see my neurologist, thinking that I was having what is called aura, or strobing flashing lights that are common with migraine. I saved up my tips for a month because, again, I had no health insurance, and the copay or his office visit was $200. I walked into his office, and we had the usual chit-chat about school and my dreams and my dream of being a pharmacist. And then he held his hands out to the side and asked me how many fingers he was holding up. And I said, "Well, that's funny, your arms are missing." And he goes, "Oh, Amy, come on, don't kid around. Don't be ridiculous. This is a serious business." And I said, "No, your arms are actually missing." So I had a concussion 2 months prior due to a horse. I grew up as an equestrian, and I had a bit of a spill. And so he thought I detached my retina. So he calls his secretary and says, "Miney, we're canceling all my afternoon appointments. Amy and I are going to go for a walk," because he knew that I had no money to go see an ophthalmologist that day. He said that I would probably need emergency surgery, and I panicked. And my plan was to bolt as soon as we got into the elevator. But he held my hand, took me down the elevator to the ophthalmologist, who looked in the back of my eye and immediately said, "Have you been sick recently?" And I thought that was really funny, considering that we're talking about my eyes. What could having a sinus infection have to do with my eye issue? As it turned out, I had a rare form of uveitis, multifocal choroiditis with panuveitis, and AZOR, acute zonal occult outer retinopathy. If you can say that, you guys get a prize at the end. So he told me there was no cure for my disease, but the best hope was that technology would eventually catch up with my disease and that we would be able to manage it for years to come. I sat in my chair and called them a few choice words and said, "I'm not losing my sight. I'm 22 years old. I don't have time for this." Said a couple choice words to them and marched my butt out the door on a Friday afternoon and went to work. Needless to say, my crashing continued and got worse. I fell down the stairs and broke my ribs. And finally, my family stepped in and intervened and insisted I go back and see a doctor. I was very lucky that the man that discovered and named my disease, Dr. Lawrence Iannuzzi, happened to be in Manhattan at Vitreous Retina and Macula Consultants of New York. Again, I saved up tips for 2 months to go see Dr. Iannuzzi, and he said, "You're in luck, kiddo. We can slow down this disease. Again, the goal is for technology to catch up with the disease, and let's hope that you can see for years to come." I went on high-dose steroids, and I gained 75 pounds in 3 months. Being a former athlete, I was a swimmer all through high school and in college, and I grew up on a horse farm, so I was an equestrian as well. I had gained all that weight and was really obviously upset about, let's see, oops, here we go. There goes my cane, the bane of my existence. There we go. My dreams of being a pharmacist were dying along with my eyesight, and I was horrified trying to figure out what my next steps were going to be.
Amy, I'm going to put this here.
Oh, thank you. It's going to fall again, so you might as well just leave it. Anybody else have a cane in here? See? Just leave it down. So I was really blessed in that I knew no matter what happened with my vision, my dreams of becoming a pharmacist were coming to an end, but I did know that I was certified as a sommelier, and no matter what happened with my vision, I always had my nose and my palate. And that's all that mattered. I didn't need to see in order to be a sommelier. And I knew I could keep a roof over my head for years to come. And that was the most important thing to me at that point. You know, my dreams of being a pharmacist had crashed, but I always envisioned somehow I'd go into clinical research or actually one day work in big pharma. I never imagined that it would come full circle like this. So I decided to continue a wonderful career in the wine business for nearly 20 years and was really, really blessed. Oops, this thing is, there we go. That is a picture of my eye. I developed neovascular and steroid-induced glaucoma due to all the oral steroids that I was on for over 10 years. I was on 60 to 80 milligrams a day of prednisone, and for those of you who know what that dose is like, it's pretty horrific. And as a way to combat the weight gain from the disease, I started getting back in the pool. A friend of mine who had polio had suggested that I join her little old lady's Aquafit class, one of those things with the foam dumbbells. And so I thought that sounded really silly, but I thought, well, I'll try anything once. And I was horrified by the size of my body. I no longer looked like the athlete that I had become. So I decided to get in the pool and signed up for a mile swim for charity. And next thing you know, the rest is history. I started spinning on a spin bike in the gym at the YMCA, and then running on the treadmill while holding on for dear life. For those of you who are visually impaired, you know that treadmills are really, really dangerous for us. So I took an elastic TheraBand and wrapped it around my waist and tied myself to the treadmill, praying not to fall off. I didn't want to be one of those YouTube videos. So this ended up turning out to be an incredible surprise. I signed up for my very first triathlon. Someone said, "You're swimming, biking, and running indoors. Have you thought about doing triathlon?" And I thought, well, that sounds really fun. I'll try anything once, twice if I like it. So I did my first race 10 years ago, and it was fast enough to garner the attention of the national team. And I made my first national team in 2013 and won 3 national titles. One of the things that is important to me was figuring out a way to overcome the challenges of my eye disease. One of the most important ways, and some of you, how many people in here have guide dogs? I don't see a lot of guide dogs in here. Just one, huh? Well, you're about to have 2. I'm getting my next dog in 3 weeks. But on the left, you'll see Woodstock. He's from Fidelco Guide Dog Foundation. And on the right, you'll see Guiding Eyes Elvis. And I decided to educate myself and surround myself with the best possible tools. I wanted to be the best sommelier I could be. I wanted to be the best athlete that I could be. And the only way I could do that was educating myself and surrounding myself with the most valuable tools I can. That was learning cane skills, which clearly need to be worked on. Using mobility, trying to figure out how to use a guide dog, learning about the drops and learning about the treatments that I was going through, understanding what the lasers were doing, asking the tough questions of the doctors, not just sitting there and being a hapless patient. I wanted to be a participant in my care. I always have had an innate curiosity about science, and I think that's what makes me really nosy. It also is what makes me a really good and very successful patient. I'm the only person over the age of 40 to have my unique combination of eye diseases that has any usable central vision. And that's not an accident. That's because I was very, very aggressive in inserting myself in my care from the very, very beginning in the get-go. I really wanted to understand every single thing that was going into my body, on my body, and what was happening around my body. I wanted the team around me to see me as a human being. The first thing that happened when I walked into the office was not asking me how my vision was doing. It was asking me about my next race. It was asking me what's my new dog's name. It was asking me how my mom's doing. I had that kind of relationship because I knew that a typical ophthalmologist is seeing 60 to 70 patients a day in a busy practice. That is not enough time to garner that kind of information. So I realized that the keys to the kingdom and the keys to the doctor were the front desk staff, were the techs, were the nurses, were the guy operating the camera and taking fundus photos. Those people became part of my care team as well, to make them really understand and see me as a whole person and understand that there were goals. It wasn't just about saving my sight, it was about saving what sight I could for a quality of life that I desired. So I focused on what I could do. That's Woodstock at one of my surgeries. This is me at World Championships with my guide, Kirsten, in Lausanne, Switzerland. So what I could do, I could still ski, and I know that sounds batshit crazy, but it's really, really fun. Gangway! No, it's really not a strategy. But I would hire guides to go skiing with, and I started therapeutic riding. I'd grown up on a horse farm. I figure a horse is probably not going to run me into anything, hopefully. They have brains, right? But I'd focus on all the things that I could do, and I could run, I could bike, I could swim, I could advocate for myself, I could be a participant in my care. There's nothing that you can't do with glaucoma that you couldn't do before, except maybe drive a car, and Tesla and Mercedes and a couple other companies are working on that, aren't they? Right? I mean, I can't wait for the day that I'm filming that Tesla commercial with my guide dog in the driver's seat. Where I'm riding shotgun, holding my margarita and waving at people. I've got it all planned. For those of you in marketing, please make it happen. It's totally got to happen. But I mean, all the things and all the possibilities that are there, one of the things that the Paralympics has taught me is that there is nothing that we can't do with our bodies. And while having vision loss is extremely challenging, we are living in the best time in history to be losing our vision to this difficult disease and to be battling this illness. Every person in this room is here with a vested interest in seeing us beat invisible glaucoma. Every person in this room is putting their brains, whether it be the doctors in this room, the pharmaceutical companies, the med tech companies that are putting their big brains around this terrible disease and finding ways that we can live a fuller life and also to beat the disease itself. So until that day comes that the disease is under control and has been cured, there are a million ways. I mean, we had a great low vision seminar yesterday. Thank you to the Braille Institute for hosting that. It was such a little eye-opening experience, knowing the tools that are available out there to us right now to be able to see better today. And that's why we're all here, right? We're here to learn, how can I live my best life with glaucoma until we beat this horrible disease? This is part of my care team. This is Dr. Liu, Dr. Combo, Dr. Stephen Foster up in Boston, and my rheumatologist. This was my A-team of physicians leading up to the Tokyo Paralympics. Every single person here was on speed dial. I was really blessed in that they gave me home tonometers, like the eye care TonoPen that is here this week, and I highly recommend you go check out their booth. That TonoPen saved me strange visits in ophthalmologist offices in countries that I didn't speak the language. I was traveling to Argentina, to Chile, Australia, although that's just a funny accent, Tokyo, to France, and I was constantly having pressure fluctuations that were really dangerous to my sight, and knowing that I had my care team on speed dial, and knowing that I had a tonometer on me, that if I had a problem, I could make a change to my medication on the fly, was so empowering. And that's where we're at. And this is 5 years ago. So now, I mean, home tonometers are becoming a very common thing. Back then, it was cost prohibitive, insurance wasn't covering it. We're very, very close to those things being covered by insurance in the next year. So that's really, really exciting. And so the power is in our hands to be able to do everything you want to do, travel, play with your children, go to school, be an athlete, whatever it is that your goals and dreams are. This team of people and the tools that we have available to us are going to make it happen. So how did I find joy? I found GRF. I mean, really, why we're here today is Glaucoma Research Foundation became an incredible resource for me in a community of people that were like-minded and cared about me as a person and cared about my vision and cared about my mental health, cared about my physical health, cared about collaborating and finding the best researchers in the world to all come together and put their big brains around this disease and fight it. And we're here in this room today because of their foresight in saying, okay, you know what's the best way to beat glaucoma and to make people feel seen and heard is to get a room full of patients together. I mean, please use this weekend as an opportunity to get to know each other and step outside of your comfort zone, because every single person in here has a story and a journey similar or very different to yours. And I think it's really important for you to realize that you're not alone in this disease and that we're not alone in this disease. My medical team made me incredibly grateful. This is how I found joy, was knowing that I found the best possible people. I did my research. Remember, medicine is a business. You know, you have, as a patient, we get white coat syndrome when we walk in there and we think that the doctor is a god. They're not. They're a human being like you. They just have a lot of schooling behind them and they've seen a lot of patients. But just like any other practitioner or any profession in the world, there are good and bad doctors out there. And there are doctors that are just simply aren't the right fit for you. And you have the right to take your business elsewhere. You are not required to see any one doctor. No insurance on the planet is going to only give you one option for a physician. So do your homework, shop around, talk to the nurses, find out how much they like that doctor. Sometimes that says a lot, because this is going to be your long-term partner in your care. This person is going to be your teammate, your secret weapon when things get hard and you're making tough decisions about your eye disease. You want somebody who's an ally and somebody you trust and really feels vested in the outcome of your care. And so that's really, really important. And I found joy in finding the right team who really, truly cared about me. And also, obviously, having teammates. You know, here you see me with my teammate Christy, and she's my guide, and I've traveled all over the world with her qualifying for the Tokyo Paralympic Games, and just finding this incredible support in my community around me. Online support groups too, Glaucoma Eyes International, that I'm the president of. We have 30,000 patients in our support group, and I highly recommend you hop in there. If you're not already on their Facebook group, get in there today. It's a great resource for you to talk about your drops, talk about, you know, fights with your husband because you broke the silverware again, you know, things like that. You'd be surprised. Community is absolutely, absolutely critical. How I found patient advocacy. Well, one of the things you'll see here is my hashtag is No Sight, No Limits, and I started a camp for visually impaired athletes learning how to do the sport of triathlon, because one of the frustrations for me was that the bar was set really low, and I found that a lot of these centers for the blind and also coaching opportunities for blind athletes, specifically in triathlon and track and field, was very low functioning. It was, can you play with a deck of cards? Can you basically cook? Can you safely get down a flight of stairs? There was no room for high achievement. And that's, you know, that is really, really frustrating, because I know plenty of visually impaired people with glaucoma. My friend's daughter, who just graduated with her MBA from Harvard, who has been totally blind since age 6 due to glaucoma. I know several blind attorneys. I know a blind actuary. I know a gentleman who just climbed Mount Kilimanjaro who's visually impaired. Blindness is not an excuse for low function, and I get frustrated with companies and people that set that bar so low. So I decided to start taking matters into my own hands, and I started a camp for blind athletes focusing on high performance, not just participating in sports, but excelling, being competitive on the international stage. And then I started patient advocacy because, gosh, we need a voice. I mean, not everybody is as talkative as I am. And not everybody has the chutzpah to stand up to their physician and say, listen, this isn't working for me. You know, for instance, you know, as a sommelier, my nose and my palate, I mentioned, were my job. And one particular physician I had back on the East Coast wasn't aware of what my profession was and prescribed me a particular chemotherapy drug, an immunosuppressive for my uveitis, that caused everything to taste like metal. So the next day I have a big meeting with an important winemaker that flew in from France just to meet with me. I'm about to spend $300,000 for my employer on his wines, and I can't taste anything but aluminum. So needless to say, I go back the following week to the physician and he says, how's everything going? And I said, well, great, other than the fact that everything tastes like metal. And he goes, well, is that a problem? I said, well, yeah, do you know what I do for a living? He goes, no. So again, having that relationship where they have a vested interest and really understand what your goals and initiatives are as a patient. And so I realized that I'm not the first person to be in this position, but I am loud and I am obnoxious and I am tough and I demand excellence in everything. I train 4 to 6 hours a day, 6 days a week for my sport. I'm getting ready to compete in my 3rd Paralympic Games in Paris next year in the sport of cycling. And I demand excellence out of myself every day, whether it's my coaches, whether it's the people that I'm coaching, whether it's my care team, and I think you should too. Actually, I don't think, I know you should, because it's your eyes and you only get one shot at this. You do not get to be passive in this fight. It is not okay to be passive in this fight. I want to just close with, today we're here to get knowledge from GRF. That's the goal of the weekend. GRF is going to supply you with the information. They're going to give you the empowering tools. They're going to show you the low vision devices. They're going to introduce you to the pharma companies. They're going to show you the creative ways that you can live with glaucoma right now, today. And then we have the tools. We've got the doctors. We've got the technology. We have the low vision aids that are here to support you. And then we have each other. We've got this incredible family and support network in this room, and I urge each of you to talk to each other during lunch, during the breaks, share your story, hug each other, support each other, and make sure you get each other's contact information, get into a support group together. That's how we're going to beat this disease. Becoming a world champion and 4-time national champion and Paralympian requires a healthy dose of luck. Luck is where preparation meets opportunity. Use this weekend at GRF to make your own luck. Thank you.